Now that Donald Trump is drunk with power, what is the United States Supreme Court going to do about it as he tries to implement his strategy of having the MAGA Senate, upon their arrival, call a phony fake recess for more than 10 days, where the Senate will not be in session doing any of the people's business, but instead will bend over to allow Donald Trump to appoint at will all of his cabinet, all of his federal judges, all of his members of federal office without having to go through a confirmation process or public hearing through the Senate, undermining the role of the Senate in the Article 1 of the Constitution. What is this Supreme Court going to do about it? I'm going to cover it in more detail right here on Legal AF, the new YouTube channel we're doing in collaboration with the Midas Touch Network. Now, more than ever, we need your help and support to help us grow and build this pro-democracy channel. Hit the subscribe button. I'm Michael Popok, and I'm at the intersection. And this issue is so important that I need to do it at different angles in different ways on different videos. And here's my angle on this one. The United States Supreme Court is, of course, responsible for what has happened. The Supreme Court took a look at the three co-equal branches of government that's supposed to serve as a checks and balance, one against the other. The Congress checking the executive branch checking Congress, the judiciary serving its role, but they blew that all apart. They blew that all apart in July in the immunity decision in which they said, no, an imperial president is fine with us. A presidency that levitates above the other two branches is fine with us. And now Donald Trump, drunk with power off of Tuesday's election, has decided to test that theory, that he is a unitary imperial president. And now he's going to try to overturn 250 years of precedent and try to hollow out the Senate, make the Senate nothing more than a rubber stamp for Donald Trump. That's not co-equal branches, everybody. That's not separation of powers and structural integrity and checks and balance. That is a ruling by fiat and by dictatorship. What he's trying to do, as I've outlined before, is he wants the court. He wants the Senate, who will be almost all MAGA. I mean, they'll be up +5 in the majority when they come in January. He wants them to go into almost immediate recess. Don't do their job. Don't do any legislation. Don't do the people's business for which they were sent there for. Go into call a recess. Give Donald Trump 10 days to get his federal judges, his cabinet, and other federal officers lining the entire executive branch, all appointed by him under Article 2, his Article 2 powers as president, Section 2, Clause 3, create a fake and phony artificial recess to allow for recess appointment. Now, recess appointment was only supposed to be an alternative if the regular appointment method, which is the president appoints, the Senate advises and consents and confirms through a Senate confirmation process, the public gets to see, there's vetting that goes on, and we have a seat at the table. Donald Trump doesn't want you to have a seat at the table. Donald Trump wants to do it all in the back smoke-filled rooms where you don't get to see what will happen. And the first time in our presidency, he is demanding that the MAGA Senate, who he swept into power, bend the knee to him, become a rubber stamp to him. There goes checks and balance. I mean, now it's going to end up in the lap of the United States Supreme Court, who created this mess. The United States Supreme Court and Chief Justice Roberts, will go down in history as at least in the near term, as completely undermining the co-equal branches of government structure, the separation of power structure, and the checks and balance, each against the other. Because they created a super president, a Leviathan, right? An imperial president, a unitary executive branch that has complete control, and now wants to do to the Senate what people like Ron DeSantis, the governor in Florida, did with to the Florida legislature, which is whatever the governor says goes. That's how all those crazy laws got passed in Florida. Susie Wiles, the new chief of staff, came out of Florida and working for Ron DeSantis. So this is a natural for her. I'm sure she might have given him the idea, let's use recess appointments. Now, they are supposed to be that if there is a natural recess in the Senate, not one conjured up, concocted, then during that period, if there's a vacancy, the president can use the appointment power during the recess, as long as it's at least about 10 days long, so the Supreme Court has said in the past, to fill the position, not create. This would be the president conspiring with the Senate to concoct a fake recess in order to give him unlimited power to appoint without Senate confirmation. Now, if that doesn't set the hair on fire of the Supreme Court, including MAGA, I don't know what will. They are supposed to be institutionalists, constitutionalists. They're supposed to be worried about the separation of power. Every time they don't like something that the D.C. Court of Appeals did about Donald Trump, they'd say, oh, the separation of powers has been violated. How is a president in the open, in broad daylight, conspiring with Senate leadership, including Rick Scott, the likely new head of the Senate Majority Leader, as picked by President Elon Musk? How is that a proper exercise of separation of powers? I mean, the Founding Fathers never foresaw that the Senate would, through populism, which is follow the fearless leader and abdicate its responsibilities that are listed in its constitutional duties that are in the Constitution, that are listed there in Article 1, and allow the president to run amok, power drunk, mad with power. They never envisioned that. Alexander Hamilton, who wrote most of the Federalist Papers about this point, said in Federalist Paper number 67 that the clause itself, the recess appointment power for the presidency, is limited in use. It's only when the normal confirmation process, you nominate somebody, they go through a hearing, the public gets a seat at the table to watch, there's vetting of it, there's questions asked by the minority party, that process. Then you only use this other process, which gives somebody almost a 2-year full run before he's really up for confirmation again. You only use that like in emergencies if the other process if the general process doesn't really work. But for the Senate to effectively take a magic eraser and erase their obligation under our separation of powers to confirm and to have public hearing about it is a catastrophe of epic proportion that the Supreme Court is going to have to deal with. Now, I know that we've got 3 votes already against this power play, this power grab in broad daylight. Sotomayor, Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. I think Amy Coney Barrett won't find this to be appealing either, as it undermines the separation of powers and the co-equal branches of government and the checks and balance system that our framers built this entire constitutional republic upon. Question is, from Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and Roberts, can they get one more vote? This is where maybe Roberts comes over, maybe Kavanaugh comes over. Gorsuch, I don't hold out hope for, unless he believes he's on the losing end and maybe he moves over to make it 6-3. But this is one of the most important 5-4 decisions in our lifetime, is checking the unbridled power and thirst for power of Donald Trump right off the bat. And the balls that he has to just announce it in broad daylight in his social media posts and make it a litmus test, a condition of the Senate, the leader of the Senate for the Republicans, that person say that he will agree to this immediate recess, to hollow out the institution of the Senate, to violate its own rules. And of course, Rick Scott, first one, Florida. We're back to Florida and Susie Wiles. See Susie Wiles' fingerprints all over this as the new chief of staff? Came up through Florida politics, started as a Reaganite, worked for Jack Kemp of all people, a moderate who ran with Bob Dole after a football career in Buffalo, New York, but ended up down in Florida. Her father's Pat Summerall, the famous NFL announcer for CBS, along with John Madden of all people. And worked her way up through the rough and tumble, sharp elbows of Florida politics with Rick Scott, and helped Rick Scott get elected and helped Ron DeSantis. This is a Susie Wiles special, and I'm calling it out right here on this hot take. And so what we have so far is, what do we do about it? Well, one, we got to talk about it. We got to keep the bastards honest, as one of my followers in Australia told me. We got to continue to call it out. And then we got to be ready with the lawsuits. As soon as they try this, the Democratic National Committee and the minority party of the Democrats of the Senate have to run to court, D.C. court, file an action to stop it, maybe get right to the United States Supreme Court because it's a separation of powers issue, and get to the Supreme Court on this issue, that this fake, phony, conjured up recess to allow Donald Trump to have unbridled power and get everybody in and have them be there 2 years unconfirmed violates Article 1 and Article 2 of the Constitution. It needs to be declared. And that, get ready for that lawsuit. That's why we need you here on Legal AF. We need you here for it. We'll bring the receipts. We'll do the analysis, but we need you here. Hit the free subscribe button. This issue, Donald Trump's cockiness, the balls that he has because he's interpreted this as a MAGA sweep, has gone to his head. And we're going to have to continue to watch what he does next and to try to check him both here on independent analysis and journalism that you can only find on the Midas Touch Network and on Legal AF and otherwise. So I'm going to continue to follow it. Check back here for my updates about this story. This may be the most important issue, legal constitutional issue that I'll be following for the rest of 2025. And check back here for it. Until my next contribution right here on Legal AF, where I am the special kind of the curator of it all and also the co-founder of the Legal AF podcast, I'm Michael Popok, and I am reporting. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.